How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about House from 1977, or some people call it by its Japanese title, Hausu, presumably to distinguish it from the American film from the 1980s, which even though they have a similar title, well, the same title when you translate it, the two films are unrelated. And to those of you who have just seen the American House and not the Japanese one, that's a pretty wacky and crazy film, but believe it or not, the Japanese one easily has it beat in that department. This is a crazy, fun, surreal film, and we'll get into all that in a minute. This is directed by Nobuhiko Obayashi and stars Kimiko Ikegami. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing any of those names. And let's go ahead and talk a bit about the plot. I'm not going to do any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points and make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what this movie's about. You get girls on the last day of school, two girls named Gorgeous and Fantasy. We'll get into the names more in a bit, and they're messing around, taking photos, and the two of them are discussing what they're going to do over summer. You see, Fantasy is going with a lot of the other girls in her class to a cabin, a sort of retreat, and Gorgeous is going with her father on a different retreat, and the two girls are upset that they're not going to see each other much over summer vacation. Well, Gorgeous goes home to see her father, who had been away on a business trip in, I believe, Italy, and turns out he's coming back with a new wife. His last wife had died 8 years ago, and he's ready to move on, but his daughter is very upset by this, and decides she doesn't want to spend the summer with him anymore, and decides to join the other girls. Well, the other girls have a bit of a thing to figure out as well, because the place they were staying at, the lady who owns it is having a baby, and they can't stay there anymore. But now that Gorgeous is going with them, she has an idea. Her deceased mother had a sister who, after the mother was deceased, she didn't wind up seeing very often and had been wanting to see her aunt for a while. So she says, hey, let me write my aunt, maybe we can all stay at her house. And the aunt graciously accepts and is very, very eager to see him. They all go and they get on a train and they go to the aunt's house. Now, there was supposed to be a teacher who was going to chaperone them, but he did not make the, well, I said train, I think it's actually, no, it's a train first and then it's a bus. But he did not make the train because he comedically fell down some stairs and got his butt stuck in a bucket. There's much more weird things in the film than that, don't worry about that. They get on the train, so it's just the girls, and they get to the aunt's house. The aunt's in a wheelchair, very old, and, had been teaching piano lessons, but now no one comes down. She has a nice big house. Now, because she's old and she lives alone, all the girls are offering to do chores for her, cook, split wood, clean the house, and they separate to do these chores. This whole movie takes place over the course of like one night, and as they separate, strange things happen, and they slowly, one by one, classic horror movie style, begin to get picked off, and the girls start to wonder what's happening and why all their friends are disappearing. It appears that Gorgeous's aunt seems to be getting stronger and more energetic, just found some energy because she's so happy the children are around, or is it something more nefarious? And that's as far as we'll go into the plot. Now, how do I describe this movie? What everyone knows and what everyone talks about is the tone and the atmosphere and how crazy it gets. And when I learned that the people who made this movie had a large history in making advertising, that really makes sense, because advertising, you have to get people's attention in like 20 seconds to get them to pay attention to the screen and buy the product. So in turn, this movie is big and loud and is constantly trying to keep your attention by doing crazy, surreal things. And I finished this movie literally not too long ago. I watched the movie, wrote my review, and sat down here trying to talk about it, and honestly, I still feel like there's a lot to process from this movie. It is weird and surreal. First off, the girls, they all have these weird nicknames. Presumably they're nicknames, but you never know. Gorgeous is the main character because she's gorgeous. Fantasy, Sweet, Melody, Mac, Professor is the smart one, and then Kung Fu is one of the girls' names. You get this girl named Kung Fu, and she's easily the best character in there, who when something crazy happens, she'll start to fight it, And these are, a wild and crazy cast of characters, but the easiest way to describe just how wacky and weird this movie is when it's not a horror movie and it's just trying to be normal, Everything is overly colorful, there's crazy over-the-top music, some overly dramatic shots, and weird transitions, but when the film's trying to tell the non-horror parts of the story, all that is there, and it stays, pretty weird. Like, there's one part where Gorgeous is with her group of friends, and she's upset, and in order to draw attention onto her, they black out all of the screen except for a little circle where she's standing, and it's just like, oh hey, she's upset, did you notice it? Let me just circle her. It's really weird. There's a part where they're talking in the beginning, just a bunch of girls talking, and then, because they're at school, there's a bunch of kids playing around them, and a rogue dodgeball is coming and about to hit him in the face, and Kung Fu, whose back was turned to this, turns around, punches the ball in midair, and sends it away, which, granted, this is back when everything had to be done practically. I wonder how many times it took him to get that shot. But, things like they get on the train, and then you see this kid has a book of a train, a kid's book, which causes the train to turn into a cartoon for a minute. And, yeah, it's pretty weird stuff. Early on, we get a bit of exposition talking about how the aunt was going to marry this guy, and he died in World War II. And it does that classic thing of showing old black and white footage, and that way it's a flashback, it's back in time, but the characters are talking about the story that Gorgeous is telling, but they can apparently see this video despite that there's no projector or anything. They shouldn't be able to see the flashback footage, but girls will comment like, oh hey, he looks cool, they can see this footage somehow even though they shouldn't be able to. And strangely enough, the cat that Gorgeous owns is in the footage, and the cat is a weird part of this movie too. Gorgeous owns him, this cat named Blanche, I believe, a white cat, and she goes to the train and is like, oh hey, where's the cat? I don't know. And they go and the cat's just sitting in its seat all ready to go like it knows what's up. Then it's in the past as well, and they get to the house and the cat just jumps into the aunt's lap, and you look around the house and there's little statues of the cat, little paintings of the cat. He's incorporated into the design everywhere. He's really one of the main weird supernatural elements of this piece, and you're like, what is up with that thing? And it's not super well explained. You can make a few inferences and guesses as to what's up with him, but man, weird, crazy cat character, which is why he gets the cover on this Criterion release here, which, by the way, really glad that Criterion put something like this out, more weird and crazy than they normally do. Spy number 539, by the way. But now that being said, I talked about when the movie wasn't horror, but when the movie does get into horror, things get pretty intense and crazy. It has crazy fast editing where you might all of a sudden see a barrage of like 20 shots in 20 seconds or less, and things just go crazy. The colors in this movie, there'll be things like, say, piano keys, and the piano keys will start going into wacky primary colors that are like painted over it in post. And really just anything can happen. And I don't want to just go and, spoil all the parts of the movie, but, this is a movie where one of the characters, a man, dies because he gets turned into a pile of bananas, and that's one of the least memorable things because there's so many other crazy stuff. There's obviously the famous piano scene from this movie, which I don't want to spoil, but it's insane. People will die and their body parts get all cut up and the body parts will fly around the room. There's a scene where like a corded telephone attacks somebody. There's another scene where a lamp comes down from the ceiling and tries to eat people. Really early on, one of the first things we see is a chandelier that just randomly starts shooting the little spikes off of it, and Kung Fu has to leap into midair and whack them out of the sky, and it's just so weird and bizarre, and you really never know what's gonna happen. A character who's dead, all of a sudden their giant face appears, and then they'll start talking as a pair of giant disembodied lips, and I really, I could try to just go through and list everything, but there's just so many weird and insane things, and I could never really get across how weird and surreal this movie is. And if you like weird and cheesy B-movies, this definitely needs to be one you check out. This is one of the weirdest movies I've seen in a while, and like I said, I'm still trying to process it. Every little thing is over the top, crazy, bright colors, weird transition. There's so many, overlays where, there'll be like a wide shot, and then rather than switching to a close-up, there'll be like a fuzzy circle overlay of that character's close-up. And it's all these weird editing and shot choices, and I honestly feel like I can't even begin to describe this movie just because there's so much going on. And at the surface, the plot is relatively simple. Girls go into a haunted house, get picked off, but this is the most crazy, high-energy version of that story you could possibly do, and I'd say definitely go check this out. And if you guys have HBO Max at the time of recording, you can stream this there. Definitely watch it. But yeah, a really great movie, and it's one of those that I instantly love, but it's so indescribable that I don't even know how good a job I'm doing right now. I'm hoping I'm not rambling too bad. But anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You are really helping the channel out. I do, when I cover movies, I do like 95% horror on here. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, I'd recommend sticking around. I'll put a relevant playlist on the bottom so you guys can find more stuff that you might like as well. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom, and yeah, go check this movie out.